In 2022, I received a staff machine learning engineer offer from Meta for more money than I ever thought possible. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on my Meta offer, breaking down the nuances of machine learning engineering compensation, and sharing inside strategies to maximize your own tech salary negotiations. Look, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, this information could be worth millions to you over your career. While the average annual salary increase in the United States hovers around 3 to 5%, a day or two of skilled negotiation can often net you a 10 to 20% boost or more in total compensation. Yet shockingly, 61% of job applicants don't even attempt to negotiate their offer. And here's the thing, negotiating is really easy if you understand some basic principles. I learned these principles in an unexpected place. Poker tables in Las Vegas. During college, when my 40-hour work week wasn't cutting it financially, I started making weekend trips to play poker and blackjack in Vegas. Little did I know, those high-stake games would teach me invaluable lessons about negotiations. You see, both poker and salary negotiations are games of information asymmetry, psychology, and knowing how to play your hand. The most important things you need to know in order to win in poker are rules of the game. These are freely available to all players. How good is your hand and how good your opponent's hands are, which is secret. How to persuade your opponent that your hand is better than it is. These are the same things you need for salary negotiations. The rules of the game are simply what the different components of the compensation are and which ones the company is more flexible on. Typically, a publicly traded company will offer you base salary, what you get every year regardless of performance, bonus, depending on companies and your personal performance, equity, you're granted X shares on a certain vesting schedule, and the sign-on bonus, one-time lump sum. Target bonus is usually set in stone for your level. Stock typically requires VP approval to change. Base salary has some more give to it. The sign-on bonus is usually the easiest to negotiate. It only happens once and the companies are pretty flexible on it. For smaller startups, equity is more negotiable, and there's usually not a sign-on bonus. Negotiation tactics are how you let your opponents think that your hand is stronger than it really is. But guess what? I'm no expert on this. I found an immense value by reading the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I highly recommend checking it out, link in the description. It's been a game changer for me in negotiations both during the offer stage and throughout my career. You'd be surprised how often you would need to negotiate. For instance, one key insight Voss shares about salary negotiation is the power of using odd, precise numbers instead of round ones. He suggests that proposing a salary of $87,650 instead of $90,000 can make you appear more informed and can anchor negotiations in your favor. The book is full of counterintuitive tactics like this and can give you an edge in any negotiation scenario. The most critical information for you is knowing your opponent's hand. How much is the company willing to pay for this particular role? You may have someone on the inside in a small company who can tell you the exact numbers, but if you're that lucky, you're probably not watching that video. The more common scenario is you simply don't know. However, your recruiter can give you a directional number here, and the most important information is looking at what people at that level, at that type of company usually make. This relies on people willingly being open about their compensation, and that's what gives you the biggest leg up. Hey, that's sort of what I'm doing. Like and subscribe so I can continue to produce more content like this. The problem is knowing where to find this information can do you more harm than good unless you understand how to synthesize it. I once had a senior staff engineer who just got an offer from a FANG company try to negotiate using information from his friend, who was actually 2 steps above him in the career ladder. When all was said and done, he lost the offer. And the starting point for the negotiation was in the 7 figures. Before I jump too far ahead with how you can put all these data points together, let me introduce you to a website where you can find a lot more of this information. Now, this can lead you astray unless you watch the rest of this video, so don't jump just yet. But Levels FYI is where most of the tech industry goes to find salary information. This is your best source. Here are the best practices for estimating how much you could be making. Career level variability. At higher echelons, compensation becomes more diverse. Accurately assessing your skills above like an E8 becomes more challenging because it depends on what you have done in the industry. Location and specialization. Factor in the geographical cost of living and your specific domain. For machine learning roles, expect compensation in the upper half of the software engineering roles for the equivalent level. Focus on recent hires. Limit your research to recently filled positions, those with 0 years at the company. This approach accounts for the current market trends, those are subject to change, and simplifies the complex equity component of the compensation package. When I started at Meta, the stock was at a quarter of what it is today. When data are scarce, look to organizations competing for similar talent. For example, Google and Meta often compete for the same talent. Anthropic and OpenAI. Because the people are similar, in order to attract the best, the other company will always need to match what its peers in the industry are doing. Remember, your initial offer is the most reliable indicator of your market value. Use this as a primary reference point for your negotiation. Realistically, unless you're an industry-leading superstar, getting much more than 120% of your initial offer is very unlikely to happen. But 110 should be very possible. I know people who lost offers because they were so far out of the range the company was willing to pay that the company just said, why bother? And this brings us to negotiation levers. Let's briefly look at the levers at your disposal here. I remember the first time I went to Disneyland with a kid and bought a banana.
Do you think that the people at the airport that run the stores have any idea what the prices are every place else in the
The
world?
point is, bananas are not worth the same at your local grocery store and in a park where you're confined with children for the entire day. Likewise, with salary negotiation, you have to understand when you're worth more. And good news is, we all hate interviewing candidates. And when we find one that's good enough, usually a few $1,000s here or there doesn't matter that much. Having a competing offer also helps. In our poker metaphor, this indicates that you're holding a strong hand, especially if it's from a competitor. Leaving behind lots of equity can help you, but most employers kind of understand that once you've made the decision to leave, nothing in the old job matters all that much. There's one more very important lever, probably one of the most important, but let me tell you about my own offer first. For context, I live in a low cost of living state. Yet in 2022, I got this offer from Meta. Base, $275,000. Bonus, 20%. Sign-on, $85,000. And equity, 6,395 shares over 4 years. That last piece is currently worth almost $3.5 million. But that's not all. In companies like Meta, every year you get a stock refresher. For me, this year, assuming medium performance, that refresher alone would be worth almost $100,000 a year for the next 4 years. So if I were still at Meta today, I would make about $950,330. And the reason I was able to get that offer is because of the biggest leverage of all, my performance in the interviews. Having higher marks here makes it much more likely for you to be able to negotiate a larger compensation package. The interview that I aced the most in my loop was the machine learning system design interview. To see how I did it, watch this video next.